parts of this, but it's good. We are getting warm.
It's yeah, we are. I will do. I'll share my screen again as soon as I can.
Very
Um,
interesting, Ollie. I think everybody agrees. It's really, really, it's fascinating.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's very, very kind. Are you able to give me permission to share the screen again, please?
Uh, Alexander, is it me or you doing this, giving the permission? I can do it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And we're recording. Okay. I just say I really like the fact that we've done a seminar about floorball commentary in 3 periods. I just think that's incredibly appropriate and taking a short power break each time. Um, yeah, just to go back to what I was saying about the sort of wider nation versus nation context. And I think about the people again that complain that Edwin is favouring one team or favouring another team or whatever. Um, some fans they won't care about this at all, but some will. And I just think it's about trying to give people as many options for why they should care as possible. The same for the teams, in your domestic league, who they are, and this is what you'll be so good at. Is trying to tell that story. I try to do it internationally, and I that's what I try to get better at every time I commentate international floorball. Is trying to actually talk about who the teams are. I'm doing the Champions Cup commentary this next weekend, which I'll do remotely. And part of it for me will be actually making sure that fans watching it know which bit of the country these teams are from. Um, it's like when you say that so and so plays for Classic in Tampere. Okay, great, but what's Tampere? Where is it? What does it look like to walk through the streets of Tampere? What's it like as a city? That trying to get that across to people. Same thing for the host city as well. Always for me, it's really important to talk about the host city of the match or the city of the um, event, and look for ways that ties into the match. I did um, I did an archery event yesterday. I was commentating it just remotely from my home studio, and the archery was in the south of France, in a city with incredible history, a Roman city. And I kept talking about it because it felt like there were so many parallels to be drawn with the history of the great sport of archery, with the history of this city, with the history of the cities of other people, even if it's as simple as saying, you know, here we are in the city of Nîmes, which is famous for its Roman architecture. Well, this person is from the city of Tallinn, which has one of the most beautiful old towns in all of Europe. And if you ever get the chance to go to Tallinn, you should visit it because it's wonderful. Just little things like that, I think make a difference. I was commentating on some table tennis last year, and there were two Indian players facing each other, and I knew that the Indian audience watching it would be big because they're just a sports mad nation. And I told one little story about a player, and it was that she'd started playing table tennis with her brother, and her brother would occasionally, older brother, would let her win because she cried when she lost, and he believed that if she got the experience of winning occasionally it would make her want to play the sport. And now she's an Olympian in table tennis. And I told that story, and I said at the end of it, I said, and whoever that brother is, if you're watching now, what a beautiful way to treat your younger sister that you understood how to motivate her. And the live chat went mad with people sharing the story, with people getting emotional about it, with with comments about how, and suddenly everyone was enjoying the commentary. Suddenly it was like, oh, I love this commentator. This commentator is amazing. He's done so much research. It was one, then 5 minutes later they all went back to hating me probably, which is the experience that we always have as commentators. But it's a tiny bit of information, and suddenly people started to care. Um, so I think those little things that you can do to tie everything to what's happening around you, to what's happening on the field of play. Yeah, the arena. Tell me about the arena. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel it when I commentate a lot of things. All arenas look the same. Um, and it's really important to actually be able to say, here we're in the south of the city, right by the river. If you step outside of the arena, then it's a very cold day at the moment. A lot of the fans have arrived, in winter clothing or whatever. It can be just a tiny thing that helps the viewer understand where they are. Um, 40 individual stories, 42 including the head coaches, 44 including the referees and various other people. Always talk to, I think it's really important, always talk to local staff. At the events, always talk to volunteers. I had this amazing discovery. Um, I was at the Olympics, and this was in Paris, and I was commentating the closing ceremony. And one of the volunteers there, I was just having a chat to the volunteer, and she was Greek. And when she was a child, apparently she'd cried. She'd been taken to ancient Olympia, and she'd cried to her dad as a child because she'd never get to experience an Olympic Games. Um, and then later on, there she was living in Paris as a student, and she happened to be a volunteer at the Paris Olympics and finally got to experience the games. And her name was Nikki, which is Greek for victory. I mean, it was just perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I told that story in my commentary for the closing ceremony because it just felt like such a small human thing that painted a picture of all of these many volunteers that were there. Um, and I'm sure you guys do this, but I always try to go out when I'm at an event. I always try to go out into the crowd and talk to fans and talk to family and just ask them, who are you supporting? Where have you come from? What's your journey been like to get here? Um, that sort of thing. I think really is really good. Um, the best one that ever happened to me with that was I was at the Youth Olympics in 2018, and I saw a Canadian flag, and I went into the crowd and just said, who are you supporting? And they said, oh, we're supporting this gymnast called Emma Spence. And I had a little chat with them, and then I was walking away, and as I walked away, the mum said, "Oh, do you know about her grandmother?" And I thought, this is going to be interesting. No, I don't know about her grandmother. She said, "Oh, her grandmother competed at the 1932 Olympics." Nobody knew that information. It had never been told to the world. And so, of course, I got to be the first person to communicate that about this particular athlete just from a really quick interaction with the family. Um, and it was funny because, like I said it, and literally within minutes, it had been put on her Wikipedia profile. People were sort of updating it as they were going. And of course, then everyone tells the story, but it was lovely to get to tell it for the first time. And I've had that with floorball a lot, just going up to fans and asking parents, things. They tell me little bits of information. Um, Brings me to my last thing, which is that we are not paid for each word that we say. This is one of the best bits of advice I'm given every time I do the Olympics. Our producer says to all of us, he gathers us in a big room. Sorry, someone's trying to call me on WhatsApp, and I'm just going to close that down now. Right. The funny thing is that was actually one of my producers who was calling me at the time to not the one who says this. He always says you're not paid by the word, and it's I think a really important principle of letting things breathe as a commentator, especially in floorball, where floorball can sound like radio commentary because it's so fast. And I think sometimes we can say too much. Um, if you if you listen to most of the big moments that I commentate, I usually don't say anything right after the goal has been scored. And there's a reason for that, and that's that um, I always think about what the fans are actually doing when the big goal is scored. So when Finland scored the winning goal in the WFC final, I didn't say anything after the goal was scored for about, I don't know, something like 5 seconds or so. And the reason is I knew that everyone in Finland was screaming and they weren't going to hear me anyway. And I knew that everyone watching it was going, "Oh my God," watching at home like that, and they weren't going to hear me anyway. And all I wanted was for people to hear the fans. And then I came in afterwards because I actually thought the reaction from the fans, the Finnish fans, was so loud, uh, and in a weird way, you could hear the silence of the Swedish fans. It's a funny thing to say, but you could hear their devastation. And I wanted the viewer just to have a moment to be left with the the atmosphere in the arena before I then started to speak again. Um, there was a great example of it done on the BBC years ago when finally a British tennis player, British man, won Wimbledon for the first time in 86 years. And it was such a big moment. And when it happened, the commentator just said, "The waiting is over." And then he didn't say anything for about a minute because there was no need for him to say anything because the whole of Britain was jumping around the living room anyway. We weren't listening to the TV. We were hugging each other and cheering and screaming, and he didn't get in the way of our conversations with ourselves. And I thought that was really brave commentary. Sometimes I'm not good at it. Sometimes I say too much. Sometimes I jump in too quickly. But I try where I can to let the big moment just stand alone. Um, I like to try and let us hear conversations with athletes as well. I try not to speak during timeouts because I like to let us actually get in there and look over the shoulder of the coach and hear what they're saying. So that's probably my last big thing to say is about my belief in letting things breathe. And with that in mind, I'm going to let it breathe and take any questions that you have.
Friends, feel free to ask Ollie any question. If you want to ask it in Ukrainian, I can translate.
Do you want to start? Shall we start, Evan, with your question earlier about the boring matches?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have one a little question after you say let it breathe. So right after they score goal, you don't start like cheering go. You just go
Sometimes.
silent. Uh-huh.
Sometimes
Okay.
it really
Okay.
depends. If I try to think about what the audience will be
Audience
doing.
doing. Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
exactly. So it was only when the winning goal, I made a decision to myself at the start of it overtime that I would be silent just to hear the crowd react when the
mm-hmm,
winning goal was scored. Um,
mm-hmm,
but no, it's really varied. Like sometimes it will literally be, I'll say the name of the player as the. For me, the best feeling, I don't know about you in floorball, is when you call the goal before the goal, and you're saying that you say the name of the player as they hit it, and the ball flies into the net as you're saying their name. That's for me, that's the perfect feeling. I love that when when you're ahead of the play. So yes, and some players have names that are perfect for saying as they score. I'm sure you've discovered that. Like Justus Kainalainen. It's a
mm-hmm,
good Kainalainen, and it just works when he scores.
mm.
Other players they don't have a good name for shouting when they score. I don't know why. It just doesn't sound as good. So yeah, there's the other one is uh Albin Hörgren as well. Hörgren is a great one to shout as he hits the ball. Um, but yeah, to go back to boring matches, I think you've got to you've got to not pretend that a contest is alive when it's not alive. I think that's insulting to an audience. You can't you can't pretend when Sweden is 6-0 up against Germany that um, that there's a chance Germany's going to come back and win it 7-6. Because that's insulting to the viewer, I think, personally. But I think what you do is you focus on whatever you can. I think sports psychology is really interesting here. I like to focus on the psychology of the goalkeeper who's being hit with shot after shot after shot after shot. I think that's always interesting. I like to focus on the psychology of um, the players who are seeing so little of the ball and not getting much time in possession. And I suppose to try to then to start to have the conversation about how important is it now for Sweden to score goal number 7? Do they need goal number 7? Um, because coming up in 2 days' time for Sweden is their match against Czechia. And are the Swedes starting now to think about that game with Czechia? And then, okay, now we start to go into that conversation and we move, I think, a bit wider and we look at that. So sometimes I think you almost start to talk around the match more.
Hmm.
I certainly do that. I start to talk around the match more, and I also think you can't. I think you can't cheer each goal or call each goal as though it is hugely important. There's no sense in screaming, oh, goal as they get number 10. It's just it's pointless. But you can bet if Germany get goal number 1, that will be
Yeah.
treated. I'm sure you know exactly what I mean here. So I think I try to talk around the match. I try to look at what's coming over the next couple of days. I try to look at those human stories a little bit more as best I possibly can. I think there's no easy answer.
I have a question about emotions. You
Yeah,
are mentioned before that there's no need to scream every goal.
yeah.
But what about in-game moments? How do you pick when to be more emotional on commentating? What place or what
Yeah.
situation you choose for to emote? Like, wow.
It's a brilliant question. I don't pick it. I feel it.
Mm.
It's genuinely a sense of feeling. I do think it's important to um, remember that every time you hit level 10, um, level 10 becomes less powerful. So I always say there's 10 levels and there's secret level 11. So you save the level 11 for that moment when it is a world championship being won, or it is an overtime comeback win or something like that. You have to be able to have that moment where you've almost lost the control of your voice, where it's that big and that dramatic. The mistake I made the first time I commentated floorball was I got way too excited about the first 3 goals, like way too excited. And the match finished something like 6-2.
27-0.
Yeah, yes, exactly that. Yeah, that's right. That's your 27-0 match. And I think that's where you just get over time you get more accomplished at not being overly emotional. But I think you
Yeah,
can
and you
actually.
become tired.
Yes, and I think what you can do is um, choosing words more than choosing volume. I think sometimes you can be very quiet in your delivery, and you can just say something like, "Oh, that is a beautiful goal! What a clever piece of play! What a stylish finish! And what a lovely moment in this match!" And that actually it doesn't need to be a big scream. Um, sometimes sometimes a goalkeeper makes a save, and you do a big reaction when they save. Sometimes they make a save, and you just pause for a moment, and you go, "I have no idea how that ball didn't go in the back of the net." You almost sometimes you can do it through slightly dropping the intensity of your voice. Um, because I always think, Michael, that I think that the lower you take it, the easier it is to bring it up. So I think it sometimes commentators they're too in the center the whole time.
Mhm.
Um, there's this wonderful example of it from actually a snooker match um, in the UK when there was this famous example in the 1980s when 23 million people at 1 o'clock in the morning in the UK were watching a snooker match. It's incredible. It was the World Championship final, and um, the commentator was a guy called Ted Lowe, and he was known as Whispering Ted because his voice was so quiet. His whole style of commentary was to talk like this, and he was very, very calm. And a player missed the shot that would have won them the World Championship title, and the crowd just went mad. And the commentator, he just went, "No," and that's all he said. And everyone remembers it. Everyone in they remember it. Because actually he said in one single word what 23 million people were feeling. We nobody could believe that the player had missed that shot. And then he paused, and then afterwards he just said, "A little bit of tension, perhaps." And it was just such a nice choice of language. And I think that's really important for us as commentators is recognizing when actually one or two words is better than using 10 words. Um, so I think that's probably how I make my decision is I suppose I always say nobody has ever watched a match and gone, that commentator should have said more. But they've certainly watched matches and gone, that commentator should have said less. So I think we
Mhm.
always go on the side of being uh, economical with our words, using fewer words. I hope that helps a bit.
Yes, thank you. Because emotions are not I'm not good at emotions when I'm commentating, and I'm on my way to practice this more. I'm like more whispering, Michael.
And great because like you should all sound
It's your
different.
style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to say something about that one of the most important things is actually knowing what your style is as a commentator. I it took me years to work it out, but I know that I am the guy that sounds like a BBC commentator from 1930. I know that that's what my voice is like. I know I'm the guy that uses quite colorful language, and and I commentate with warmth and a bit of humor. And if I try not to be that guy, if I try to be too serious, or if I try to sound like what I think a commentator sounds like, it doesn't work. So if you know your style, Michael, is that vocally you're not necessarily a big guy, and you like the whispering style, make that your thing because then when you go to level 4, your level 4 will sound like level 10 by contrast to the rest of your delivery, and that's fine. You don't have to scream and shout, but maybe for you, the choice of your language is going to be really important, and the way you use silence will be really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question regarding how how you start to commenting different sports from one sport to different, and how you manage to understand all the sports is one of my questions. And second, I think, yeah, just how you do this, how you manage this, how you start to commentating different sports.
Um, I Yeah, I think when you do multi-sport games, which was kind of my first big experience, you end up having to commentate different sports because they usually like people who can do a variety of things. Um, I would say a funny thing happens. Once you've commentated three sports, you start to no longer be scared of doing different sports. And this strange thing happens where you realize that actually I realized once there are only seven types of sport. Um, and I realized I've got to try and remember them now, having realized that there's a race, a fight, um, something with a net, something with a goal, something that involves machines, which you can include horses in that, potentially racing cars, race horses, boats, motorcycles. Um, there is an artistic sport, and there's an individual thing that has nothing to do with anyone else. And it's really funny. You realize how many sports are individual things that have nothing to do with anyone else, like archery, like
Hobby
gymnastics.
horsing.
Yeah, what you say, hobby horse? Yeah, show jumping. What might be another one? Darts or something. So a lot of sports have nothing to do with anyone else, and you don't realize it when you're watching it. That you're not actually watching person A versus person B. You're watching person A versus person A. Um, so once you realize that there are only about seven different types of sport, you then see the similarities between them.
Hmm.
Um, and you actually become less scared. Like having done a lot of gymnastics, I was asked to do figure skating at the last Winter Olympics, and I thought, okay, I don't know figure skating, but if I take the principles of gymnastics and put them into figure skating, I'll know how to learn about the sport. When I did ski jumping, it was really funny. Like I I I did ski jumping for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I never really watched the sport, but I realized it was judged artistically as well as by length. And I noticed within about 15 minutes of starting to commentate ski jumping, I could tell what the scores were going to be because it was like watching gymnastics. And I knew once I knew what the judges were looking for, I could see what was good and what was not good. Um, and I was aware I was taking this from one sport and putting it into my understanding of another sport. And actually, honestly, Edwin, it's helped make me a better commentator because I don't use only language from one sport. Um, like you'll hear me use language from gymnastics when I commentate floorball. I'll use words like elegant. I'll
Mm.
use words like graceful. I'll talk about someone's form and technique. Um, I will. Um, I'll see somebody knock somebody over the boards in floorball, and I'll say, well, that'll be a foul here, but it would be 2 points in freestyle wrestling, or something like that. It's actually nice when you can start to draw things in from different sports.
Mhm.
And I'd recommend it to all of you, actually. I'd say if there's a way to try to get in and do some work in different sports, you'll only become a better floorball commentator if you try commentating something completely different. It's definitely worth it. Any other questions?
Feel free.
I have a question about the rules of the sport.
Yes.
Have you read it, or do you read it before the you start to commentate the new sports, or you just jump in and try to realize what's happening?
I'm going to show you what I do. I'm just going to my documents at the moment. I'm going to bring because, as I said, ski jumping was the thing I did recently, my newest sport. I am going to show you. Here we go. Event basics. What I actually do. Right, here we go. So if I just quickly go back to my screen sharing, and if I stop sharing that and just give me a moment because I'm just navigating through jumping to the right document that I want to share with you. Um, right. Can you see a ski jumping thing on the screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is what I do for every single sport that I cover new. So I've got the top, just the name of where it was, Villach in Austria, and then I always do history and context is the first thing. Then I do format and rules is always the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I always do just key key things I need to look for when I'm commentating. Then I do always do something on equipment. Um, and then I always do something on vocabulary and style, which is actually mainly just questions for myself there that I had. And I put the judges' names in as well in case I needed them. Competition schedule, and then I've just got this is my basic material on where the place actually was, the event itself.
Mm-hmm.
So a bit of information on the setting. Um, and then I've just a little bit of history on ski jumping as a sport. So I do that for every single sport that I cover, um, just to have kind of key information. I turn every sport into about 1 page or 2 pages.
And how much time do you spend on the preparation? Because it's like for me, it's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. I mean, this was probably for the ski jumping. I was on air for 1 hour 40 minutes, and I spent a day preparing for it before, a full
Mhm.
day doing the preparation for a WFC. When I yeah when I probably would say going into a World Floorball Championships, I spend about 4 days solidly on prepping, or not solidly, but 8 hours a day on 4 days prepping the teams. And I like to go into the event um, actually with all of my preparation on the teams actually done. I don't like to prepare anything new um, when I'm there, other than updating information or maybe finding out things through conversations. I like to start a World Floorball Championships with every single team already prepared. It's about 4 days. One floorball team of 20 players, I probably can do in about 2 hours, maybe 1 hour 45. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I would say.
Ollie, a question.
Please.
Can a person live out of commentating, make it for a living?
Yes, I mean I'm fortunate that I do. Oops, sorry, just going to stop the screen share there. Yes, I do, and I'm very fortunate too. I'm a freelancer, so I just take work from a variety of companies. That's why, going back to Edwin, your question, that's why I like to commentate so many different sports, because it makes me more versatile, more useful to cover lots of different things. It I went full time in 2016, and I would say it took me about 3 years to be earning enough from commentary that I didn't need to do some other work in teaching and tutoring, which I was doing to cross over between going from being a teacher into being a commentator. So it definitely takes time to build up. From my first bit of commentary was 2011. It took me 5 years to be in a position where it was something I could do full time. Um, and now, fortunately, yes, I'm at the stage where I earn a good living from doing it, and I I'm now at the stage where I don't have to push too hard to get work from people, because work tends to come to me. But I'm
Because you have a
always
name.
Yeah, exactly. But it took time to get to that stage, and
Mhm.
I'm always aware, Edwin, that I might lose a client, that things change. Sometimes it can be as simple as, I know it sounds ridiculous, but um, the person in charge of the commentators changes, and that person comes in with their people that they've known for many years. You just things change. Or I did a some paddle right at the start of the when paddle started being broadcast for the New World Tour, and I did the first broadcast of it. And then I was not available for the second one because I'd already taken another job, and I wasn't available for the third one because I'd already taken another job, and now they don't use me because I said no too many times, and the job disappeared, and they established their own team. So you always have to recognize that, like, I've got some clients I've had for years and years and years, and others that they just come and go, and one appears and another one goes, and then this one comes back and this one goes, and then a new one comes in. It's always kind of a juggling your diary a bit, but I
Mhm.
do love it. It's yeah, it's really good fun.
Feel free. We have a couple minutes left.
Okay, perfect.
Some questions.
I want to ask about your headset. How much does it cost? And the
Yeah,
sound is
this one I have got on. I've got to try and remember this. I think can I look it up and I'll send you the information on it. I want to say it was no more than £200 or something like that. There's one microphone I love. It's amazing, and it's the old style BBC lip microphone.
Mm.
Um, it's perfection. It's just amazing. But it's ridiculously expensive. So I um I work for a
You
company. Yeah, sorry, go on.
you always take you always take your own headsets, or you just come and they have like their own headset
Yeah, usually, well,
and devices.
yeah, they have their own equipment. Yeah, I sometimes travel with my own just in case I need it for
Hmm.
something, if I need it for a voiceover or remote work. So I have this, and I have also and I'll just lift it up and show you. Um, I've got my own mixer, which this is what I plug into the computer, and this was more expensive. This was about, I think, £250. But I like this because it has a compressor in it, and so it means that it naturally controls my voice when I get loud. Um, because a lot of the home kits don't have a compressor, and so when I do a lot of speed skating. I love speed skating because it's just chaos and you just shout and everyone falls over and it's very exciting. But if you don't have a compressor when you're doing speed skating, your voice it crackles and becomes distorted. So I got a mixer that has a compressor in it so that when I shout, it naturally just brings my voice down and sorts it out for me.
and
So yeah,
how much of a work do you do from home?
It's let me see. All of my tennis I do from home, and that's probably my big sport. Quite a few weeks, quite a lot of weeks in the year I do tennis from home. Um, more and more now I do from home. I do all, archery from home. I do some of the smaller floorball like Champions Cup and things I do from home. The longer jobs I go overseas. Um, and then I do a lot from UK studios. All of my football I do from studios about half an hour to an hour away from my house. Um, but last year I think I went overseas 20 times for jobs. I think something like that. So I do travel quite a lot for work. I'm trying to do more from home because I don't want to travel as much for things. And it is becoming more it's becoming more common now. And I will tell you guys this: you don't need amazing soundproofing to commentate from home. You just need a good microphone. I've known people spend silly amounts of money on soundproofing. You just need a good microphone. My studio doesn't have any proper soundproofing. My neighbor was cutting a tree down with his chainsaw, and I had a good microphone, and you couldn't hear anything.
Hmm.
And he was probably about 20 meters away from me maximum. So just with a good microphone, you're okay.
So yeah, I have a last question regarding this, like remote work. What do you enjoy and prefer more, remote work or offline work when you're actually on the place where just event happens?
My brain and my heart enjoys being in the arena. My body enjoys remote work. I it's that makes sense. I love being there. Like I mean, you know that for me the highlight of a career was in the summer when I was the lead commentator for the Olympic closing ceremony, and I was in the arena in the Stade de France. Um, with literally like 60,000 people there. I will never ever forget it. It was just amazing. Um, but I also know that I can't fly for every single job that I do because you just get tired doing it. I mean, in October, I did this crazy job. I went to Japan for one football match for a World Cup qualifier. Um, Commentated the match, and then I had a job I had to get to in Baku, so I had to fly from Tokyo to London, change airports in London, fly from London to Istanbul, and then fly from Istanbul to Baku. And the whole thing took me 35 hours. And I got straight to Baku and went into the arena and started work on the next one, which was crazy. But uh, I love the adrenaline of that, like the energy of that is fantastic. But I don't want to do it all the time. But equally, I think if I worked, I know some commentators, they only work from studios. And I think life is a bit boring if you only work from a studio because you never get to go to the event. And I've learned so much about floorball just from talking to floorball people. I mean, that's how this whole thing is happening, isn't it? You know, we had a conversation over a meal at the WFC, and this is why I now am meeting the Ukraine floorball family, and that's a wonderful thing. And now, you know, when I finally commentate you guys for the first time, there'll be something like here in my heart that's extra from this meeting, and you only get that from the personal connection you have with people going to events.
We will try to be the players that you will talk about.
Yes. Oh, I'd love it. Oh, that would honestly be amazing. Be absolutely amazing. I've had it before actually where
Tamus knows that it's impossible, so he's just laughing.
No, no,
I
no, no. It's quite possible that
It's fine.
you will see our U19 national team in Switzerland in May.
yeah, I'm so
And
excited.
there will be a qualifier now. I think we have quite good chances. Let's see what happens.
Good
So it's
luck
not
to you.
impossible, and for sure the 3 against 3 will be Ukrainian both men and women team
Yeah.
in Switzerland. So
True. I 3 versus 3. I love it. Love it. I did the women's final last time. It was great.
isn't it even more difficult to commentate?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say for 3 versus 3, um the personal information, forget it. There's no time for it.
No time, no time.
No. No, the 3 versus 3 is one of those rare occasions when I just had the names of the players and the club and the number of goals they'd scored, and that was it. Because there was no need for more
The
information.
easiest event for you, the
Yeah,
preparation.
it is. It is.
No preparation.
It's turn up and talk, and that's it really. But that's where actually it's even more important to keep um your emotion under control because you can't treat every goal the same way.
Hmm.
It's like if floorball is floorball is football at high speed. 3 versus 3 is floorball at high speed. It's like it's even faster than floorball, and so you have to change your style a bit. Um, but I mean, you've got you feel free to grab me on Instagram or Blue Sky or whatever, and just ask me anything anytime you want to have a chat. I'll be delighted to.
What is
Okay.
your Instagram?
Um,
Maybe send to Tomuz or
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
can
will. Yeah,
share. Yeah, I can
yeah, I'll
share.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ollie, I
okay,
have a
perfect.
question, another question. It's maybe not so much related to sports commentating, but I'm like reflecting on what I see on, on YouTube now. There is so popular about, people are commentating everything. It could
Yeah.
be musical shows, it could be a new musical video, it could be what is it? And it's oh, it doesn't have to be an expert, just somebody having an opinion about something, and it is becoming more and more popular. What is it? Why are we so fascinated by it?
Because we love hearing what people have to say. And we've always loved hearing what people have to say, and it's now easier than ever before. The two things have changed the broadcasting industry. One of them is that we don't need to rely on traditional TV channels anymore. So anyone can create their own channel. It's also really cheap and easy to create your own content now. I mean, I think when I was a child, how much it cost to buy a camera. Now you can get a good broadcast quality camera for virtually no money, a good microphone for virtually no money, and you can broadcast yourself. And also, it's much easier for people to engage with you, and that's part of it. People like to watch content, but they also like to engage with the content. They like to ask questions and to comment and that sort of thing. And we, as commentators, we have to embrace that as well. We have to actually engage with the viewers in a way that we maybe didn't used to engage with viewers. So yeah, I just think it's really easy now for people to create content. But I would say there's a massive difference between someone commentating and someone who is a commentator. And the latter requires a real discipline and a craft and a lot of practice.
And one more question. What advice do you have? Because a lot of times our commentators, they go alone. They don't have an expert commentator.
Yep.
They are the experts. They know
Yeah.
floorball good. But so what's advice if you work alone or if you have somebody uh,
Yeah.
that is an expert commentator?
If you well, I'll say a slightly strange answer to this. You're never working alone. You're always having a conversation. You just can't see the person you're having a conversation with. Remember that you are always having a conversation with the viewer. So, um, when you work alone, ask questions to the viewer and give them the time to think about it. Give the viewer time to process their thoughts as well. Don't feel you have to fill up the airtime. Um, Sometimes it's literally you'll ask a question. You'll say, well, can you remember ever seeing a comeback like this? Okay, that you're genuinely asking a question. Sometimes you just say, well, what's going to happen next? Who knows? You don't have your own answer. Maybe you have an answer that's very clear in your own mind about it. Maybe you don't. Um, and very often you'll hear me say in a floorball match, you'll hear me say, now what? And I'm literally just throwing it out there for the viewer to answer for themselves and to make their own mind up. So I think that's important when you're working solo is remember that you are having a conversation with someone else. And when you're working with a co-commentator, don't forget to include the viewer because you mustn't start having a chat. You're not two people having a beer together. You're not two people at a bus stop. You've got to remember there's three of you in the conversation. You have to give the viewer a chance to be part of it as well. Because what happens when you bring a co-commentator in is suddenly you both just start doing this and there's double the amount of sound. And you've got to try to avoid having too much.
And one more question about the co-commentator, because we are planning to um, commentate with two people on our playoff
Right.
game this year, and maybe you can give some tips. And the direct question is about the preparation. Should we prepare for the games with one sheet of a paper, but for both of us, so we have the similar info, or you do this in some different
Um,
ways?
I always put my big team notes in the center so that my co-commentator can look at them as well. But I also, what I find my co-commentators usually have, they have it more set out in the lines because they like to look at it more tactically, and they tend to have less information than me because they don't need to do all the storytelling. I always say to my co-commentators, I say, I will talk to the heart, you talk to the head. So my job is to do the my job is to do the what, and a bit of the how, and their job is to do the rest of the how and the why. So we kind of overlap in the middle. But really, for me, that's an important principle. I talk to the heart, they talk to the head. Um, their job is to try to explain what has happened, but also and say this to your co-commentators. A good co-commentator needs not just to react; they need to anticipate. So, uh, an okay co-commentator will say that was a really good goal because they created the space here and the runner came in here and the passer was diagonal and that was very good. The the brilliant co-commentator will say at the start of the match, the best way to score against this particular team is to play the diagonal pass across the goal because the goalkeeper has shown to struggle with change of direction. And then it happens, and then they go, and that's exactly, Michael, what I was telling you about at the start of the match. It's that change of direction. Here's the diagonal ball. Watch the goalkeeper's legs here, and this is where the space is created. And that's what the great co-commentator does. They tell the audience what to watch for in advance,
Mhm.
rather than, and that's why they have to prepare. They have to know the teams. They've got to know what to expect. And I always say to the co-commentators, like, give us possibilities. Um, if I ask you the question, what might the coach be thinking of now? Just give a couple of ideas. You don't have to be right about them all, but just give a couple of ideas, and we can see what might happen.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. What I'll do, I'll send out through the chat. I actually have a document that I give to the to my co-commentators at the WFC. It's like a little guide to how to do co-commentary, and I'll send that out to you, and you can maybe translate that and use it for your league if you want.
Yes,
Right.
we need it.
Okay, good. I'll send it out.
And
It's
we
really
want it.
simple. It's like five good things, five bad things. It's really simple.
And can you add to that list maybe the microphones that you are
Yeah,
recommending?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll look up what I've got. Yeah.
I don't have a questions. So,
Okay, well, I
Okay.
think I better go now. I've taken up a lot of your time, but it's been a pleasure.
No,
I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
it has been a pleasure for us also. Very, very interesting. Okay, then thank you very much, Ollie, for sharing your knowledge and so inspiring, so much new information.
yeah.
Yeah, and then thanks everybody who joined today.
Thank you, Ollie. Thank you, Ollie. It was unbelievable time for us. Very great and very useful tips. We will use it in Ukrainian floorball. And thank you, Tamus, for organizing this event. Thank you, Ollie. It was really great.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ollie, thank you. I never thought that I need to prepare that much, and I will do these things. And most thank you for organizing
No
and
problem.
for having good dinners at W. Uh,
I, uh, I did my job. Okay. Have a good, safe evening, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.